In the heart of Lagos, where the air is thick with ambition and dreams hang in the balance between traffic horns and glimmering skyscrapers, I learned that heartbreak doesn't always break you, it sometimes builds you. The kind of story I'm about to tell isn't one you read in magazines or hear in romantic Nollywood dramas. It's the kind you whisper in salons, recount to your best friend with laughter masking old wounds, or revisit alone on quiet nights when your heart feels brave. My name is Adaora. I was once the girl he laughed at for having cheap shoes. I was the girl whose messages he left unread. The girl who once cried into her second-hand pillow, thinking love was only for those who had something to offer. He said I was too poor to date. So I let him go. But life has a beautiful way of folding back in on itself. Years later, I sent him a wedding invite. And the groom? A billionaire. But before you assume this is some Cinderella fairy tale, let me take you back to where it all began, the dust, the sweat, the tears, and the woman I had to become. I met Demola at the University of Lagos during our third year. He wasn't particularly brilliant, but his charm made up for it. He had that arrogant smile that told you he had seen the world. He wore colognes that lingered in lecture halls long after he'd gone, and he always sat in the front row, not to learn, but to be seen. I, on the other hand, was invisible. My shoes were always 2 seasons behind, my phone screen cracked, and I sold second-hand clothes in Yaba Market during weekends to pay my school fees. I wasn't the kind of girl that turned heads. But I had dreams that could keep me awake at night. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party. I remember being surprised that he even noticed me, let alone talked to me. He asked questions about my goals, my ambitions, my thoughts on life, and for a moment, I thought he saw something in me. We started texting. Or rather, I did. And he replied, sometimes. He liked to flaunt his father's businesses, the foreign trips he took every summer, and the big men he knew. I thought maybe I was being too judgmental. Maybe he just needed someone grounded. Someone like me. Until the night he ghosted me. We had plans. Simple ones. A walk around campus. Suya by the gate. But he didn't show. No calls. No texts. I waited until mosquitoes bit through my socks and my throat dried from disappointment. When I finally reached out to him days later, he replied with a message that seared into my memory. Adaora, I beg no vex. You're a good girl, but you and I don't belong in the same world. No offense, but you're too poor. I can't date someone who can't even afford to Uber to see me. I stared at the message until the screen went black. My heart crumbled. Not just because of what he said, but because deep down, I feared he was right. I went home that weekend and cried in my mother's kitchen, the same one with cracked tiles and no running water. I wanted to scream at the universe, at my dead father for dying too soon, at the world for being so cruel to girls who had nothing. But I didn't. I made a choice that night. If the world respected wealth, then I would build something so undeniable that no one would ever dare to call me too poor again. I worked harder. I began designing clothes, pieces made from Ankara scraps, and sold them online. Social media became my runway. I'd borrow data just to upload photos. I saved every naira I made. I watched YouTube tutorials on branding, marketing, and how to scale a business. People laughed at my dreams. But slowly, those dreams took shape. By the time I graduated, I had a small but growing fashion label, Ade by Adaora. I was featured in a youth startup spotlight column in The Guardian. Orders flowed in from Kenya, Ghana, even the UK. A fashion house in Dubai reached out for a collaboration. I wasn't rich. Not yet. But I was no longer invisible. Then came the pitch event that changed everything. It was a sunny Saturday at Eco Hotel. I had only one dress sample and a short, shaky pitch. But when I finished, hall was silent. Then came the applause. Afterward, the man in a navy blue kaftan approached me. He introduced himself as Chuka Nwankwo, a venture capitalist and investor in African businesses. I don't just invest in ideas, he said. I invest in people. And I believe in you. That was the beginning of a partnership and something more. Chuka was kind. Steady. The kind of man who saw worth beyond wallet size or social media clout. We started as business partners. Then friends. Then something warmer, gentler. I fought it at first, terrified that it was all too good to be true. But he never rushed me. And when he proposed on a quiet beach in Mauritius, I said yes with tears in my eyes. He wasn't just a billionaire. He was the man who made me feel like I mattered, whether I had millions or nothing at all. Our wedding was set for December in Ikoyi, a grand but intimate affair. As we went through the guest list, a mischievous idea took root in my heart. A part of me wanted to forget Demola forever. But another part of me, a stronger, bolder part, wanted to reclaim the chapter he tried to write me out of. So I sent him an invitation. Elegant. Gold-trimmed. Sealed with my new monogram. Mr. Demola Johnson, cordially invited to the union of Adaora Chakwamika and Mr. Chuka Nwankwo. I didn't know if he'd come. I didn't care. But on the wedding day, just before I walked down the aisle, I saw him, standing at the back in an ill-fitting blazer, his eyes scanning the guests like he was trying to understand how I'd gotten here. Our eyes met. He blinked, stunned. I smiled, nodded once, and walked past him with dignity that money could never buy. The day I married Chuka wasn't about revenge, it was about resurrection. The Adaora Demola dismissed had died long ago. In her place stood a woman who had fought for her worth and found love not through wealth, but through will. But what happened next, what Demola did after that wedding, was something I never saw coming. Would you believe the story didn't end at the altar? Because some ghosts don't stay buried. 2 weeks after the wedding, I received a message on Instagram from an anonymous account. Just a black profile picture with the name Redemption Walk. At first, I ignored it. But the message stayed with me. You may have won, but not every story ends at the altar. I blocked the account. But then another message came, this time, from Demola himself. Adaora. I know I don't deserve a response, but please hear me out. What I said to you back then was unforgivable. I was stupid, insecure, and blind to your value. But I haven't stopped thinking about you since the wedding. I need to speak to you. Please. Just one conversation. I stared at the screen, stunned. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a pathetic kind of desperation. Why now? Why, after all these years, after his silence, his insult, his rejection? I didn't reply. But my mind couldn't let it go. Later that week, while reviewing fabric samples at my Lekki studio, I noticed a man outside, pacing near the gate. I told my assistant not to let anyone in, but she looked uneasy. He says he knows you. Says his name is Demola Johnson. My blood ran cold. I stepped outside. There he was, once polished and khaki, now visibly worn. His shirt hung loosely on him, and his shoes, ironically, were now the kind I used to wear, cheap, scuffed, and unsure of their place. Just 5 minutes, he begged. I nodded, not for him, but for closure. We sat on the bench outside. I lost everything, he confessed. My father's company collapsed. I invested in crypto scams. My friends disappeared. Everyone I once looked down on now looks down on me. I said nothing. But you rose. You became everything I never thought you could. I was wrong, Adaora. So wrong. I looked him in the eyes. You didn't just reject me, Demola. You made me feel like I was nothing. You laughed at my dreams. Called me poor, as if money defines a person's worth. He bowed his head. I don't want anything from you, he whispered. I just needed to say it, to apologize. You inspired me. You proved me wrong. And with that, he left. I watched him disappear into the Lagos sun, humbled and haunted. I didn't forgive him. Not fully. Some wounds run too deep for easy healing. But I learned something valuable. People only define your worth when you let them. I wasn't rich when Demola left. I was determined. And that, more than gold, glamour, or a billionaire husband, is what built me. The wedding invite wasn't revenge. It was a full circle moment. Proof that where you start doesn't dictate where you'll finish. And sometimes, your silence is the loudest answer to those who once doubted you. A few months passed. Chuka and I had settled into a peaceful rhythm of marriage, equal parts laughter, work, then quiet support. My fashion label had just secured a partnership with a luxury department store in South Africa. Life was blossoming in ways I never dared dream. Then, one afternoon, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. Is this Mrs. Adaora Nwankwo? A female voice asked. Yes, speaking. This is from Holy Cross Hospital. There's a patient here, Demola Johnson, who listed you as an emergency contact. He's very ill, and there's no one else. The air left my lungs. I sat quietly for a moment, unsure if I felt pity, anger, or both. I hadn't spoken to Demola since that strange visit to my studio. But he had listed me, the girl he once discarded, for help. Against every instinct, I went. He lay in a private ward, thin and pale, hooked up to tubes. He looked nothing like the proud boy I'd once known. He opened his eyes slowly when I entered. Adaora, he croaked. You shouldn't have listed me, I said, gently but firmly. I had no one else, he whispered. My parents are abroad. My brother blocked me. I didn't call for money. I just needed someone who once knew me before I lost everything. I sat for a moment. He didn't cry. But his eyes, those eyes that once looked at me with contempt, now looked at me with raw, shattered honesty. I wish I had chosen kindness over pride, he said. I used to think wealth made me better than people. But when I lost it, I realized what I had truly lost were people. I stood, walked to the door, then turned back. I don't hate you, Demola. I just hope you find peace, and rebuild with humility. He nodded, tears finally falling. As I left the hospital, I felt no vengeance. Only a deep sense of clarity. Life doesn't always punish those who hurt us. But it has a way of teaching them. Demola wasn't my villain. He was a lesson. We all face people who underestimate us, who dismiss our potential, who define us by our lack instead of our light. But what matters is how we rise. Not for revenge. Not for applause. But to become the version of ourselves they never believed we could be. To anyone out there who has been ghosted, mocked, or called too poor to matter, let their silence fuel your voice. Let their rejection spark your rise. Let your story, like mine, become a loud whisper to the world. You were wrong about me.